Hello, 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 my friends. How are you today? And a very, very happy welcome from, well, I'm no longer in the bayou, so it's a little bit cooler than where I was the last time I was talking to you, and a little bit earlier for those eagle-eyed among you who realised that it was 3 a.m. when I recorded the last one. No, it is a very, very reasonable morning time at some point. I've worn a watch in a while, and I am in the wonderful UK as opposed to the southern states of America. It's not quite as sunny, but Thank you so much to everyone who put up with a very tired Sean last week, and thank you so much to everyone who is putting up with me in general, really. We are, of course, here to go through this week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. By this stage, I would be shocked if you didn't know how this works. We're going to go through everything that we like and give it an up, and everything that we didn't like, and we're going to give it a down. Without any further ado, I'm Sean Ferrick for Trek Culture, and here's all of the ups and downs for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 4, Memento Mori. The first up of the episode is the entire idea of Remembrance Day. All of this is very early days, really, in the Federation and Starfleet's exploration of the galaxy. Unfortunately, there has, of course, been quite a few casualties. For further details, see Season 3 of Enterprise. So the idea of this is to wear a pin commemorating a ship that you have either served on that's been lost, or maybe just a ship that's been lost. Obviously, the context of this scene is La'an, well, not wearing the pin for the SS Puget Sound, which is the colony ship on which she was, well, the sole survivor after that less than sexy massacre. We see lots of different crew members wearing different pins, to the point where La'an is the one who stands out by not wearing her pin. She's, well, confronted is a strong word, but she's certainly queried on this by number one, because of course it was Una who rescued her from the wreckage of the Puget Sound. It's not so much that, hey, why aren't you wearing a pin, loser? It's more just like, hey, look, you legitimately were in a burning wreck. Like, could you maybe, what's going on? But Una doesn't press the matter because she understands, of course, the whole idea of the trauma behind what happened to La'an. It's a nice, soft introduction in this episode to what we're going to get rather a lot of. Of course, we have touched on the fact that La'an has dealt with trauma in the past, but it's front and center in this episode. Before we go on to that, I have to do a massive up for the double team that is Hemmer and Uhura in this episode. This episode, in a way, is reminiscent of Disaster from TNG, because you have groups of crew members in different spaces throughout the ship, and they're cut off for various reasons. Hemmer and Uhura, of course, being trapped in a cargo bay. So here you really get evoked memories of Crusher and Geordi in the cargo bay in Disaster. Now, they have to work together because poor old Hemmer's hand gets crushed, and he's the engineer. Then, of course, we have an issue with this week's MacGuffin that's going to go boom. Now, it's the AP350. We had reference to this in the beginning of the episode, and we know that Uhura has a working knowledge of this machine. Uhura then is able to work with Hemmer throughout the episode to repair this machine. It's very much the B plot, even though, of course, it plays into the whole overall A plot. But it's an excellent plot point to show that Uhura is very confident in their own skills, as well as teaching others to be a part of a team. Hemmer, you get that sort of grumbly, curmudgeon, like, I don't like being a part of a team. To which Uhura cuts back with, get fine with it. Which I love, by the way. Thank you very much, Uhura, for taking absolutely no guff. There was never any question as to whether they're going to survive or not. Uhura has some fairly strong plot armor. For further details, see, do I even need to say it? That was never the point. They do a sort of a are they alive, aren't they alive moment, but it was never really the point of their plotline. The point was seeing the interplay between these two characters. For me, it absolutely works perfectly. I love the way these two interact with each other. I love the way they bounce off each other, and the absolutely stoic, kind of grumbly Hemmer begins to warm up to Uhura. Uhura is a bit like Strange New Worlds' take on Ensign Tilly. Very different, of course, because not only do we have a massive backstory and forward story, really, with Uhura, but also a very different character in that they are much more outgoing, they are much more confident in themselves, even in their lack of confidence. Whereas Tilly was an introduction to all of those who don't have that confidence in themselves and watch that growth. That said, they're both viewpoint characters. This entire plotline for me, definitely an up. Really, really enjoyed it. Continuing this brilliant representation of Uhura in Strange New Worlds. Already we've got, in just a few episodes, I think enough to pad out so much of Uhura's backstory leading into the original series and the movies beyond. Now, I'm going to go with an up, but I'm going to lead into a down in the middle of discussing this up. Alright, so first of all, the up is La'an's trauma. Now, not the fact that La'an is traumatized, I'm not a monster, it's handled quite well. We don't get bet over the head with it. And there's no kind of like, now everyone, we must stop and discuss trauma for a second, which has been handled, unfortunately, quite poorly in quite recent episodes of Star Trek. And I think you probably know what I'm referring to. Here you have an officer who is very functional despite the trauma that was visited on her as a child. There are moments where it slips, and I will address those, but overall, what you have in La'an is Christina Chong's performance really shows someone who, at the very front of their mind, is struggling with this fear and these memories, and yes, hallucinations, which I find very hit or miss when it comes to televised depictions of trauma. They were fine here. They weren't amazing, they weren't terrible, they were fine. So, but dealing with hallucinations and this kind of trauma, this can be debilitating. And what we see is La'an fighting through it all. And although there's moments where you're like, that feels like a bit of a trope, overall, I really like how they did that. Now, I'm almost going to pause this discussion for a second to move to a down. I have no downs when it comes to the appearance of the Gorn in Strange New Worlds. As, you know, I will get to discussing Arena now in a moment. Don't worry, the big arena in the room will be discussed. One thing I did feel was a down, because it was sort of a needless change, was the Gorn clicking, as opposed to, we've heard the Gorn hiss and growl, but never click. And they make a big massive thing of it, like, you know, oh my god, they click, and La'an's eyes widen, and it's definitely the Gorn, it's definitely the Gorn. I just felt it was needless. There was absolutely no need to do that. You know, we've heard the Gorn hiss, and quite distinctive hiss. Yes, you didn't need to play the exact hiss from Arena, because I think several hours later I would still probably be giggling. I understand that. But you could just have a simple hiss, or a simple growl. It was, for me, it was just like oh, that wasn't really necessary now, was it? Am I being too harsh? Potentially. Do I care? Not really. Back to the up. As La'an deals, for example, with that scene where she hears the child with this new noise that the Gorn make, eyes wide, she knows exactly what it is. It's the Gorn. She says it to Una. They're like, we need to get out of here. We've got a transport bridge. That's a bit bad. Oh dear, bang, bang, boom, boom. Not very good. Everybody's sad. Now, she does manage to get up to the bridge. She says, get those bloody shields up, you know. And it's good. She jumps into action. And again, this is using her past trauma. There is a moment where she freezes, and it is addressed, and we don't linger. And I think that's a really good sign of writing. And again, a fantastic sign of how Christina plays this part. I have to say, for me, in this episode, trauma handled really well. Except for one moment. I do have a down, and that down is, the enemy has no concern for my feelings, therefore I have no feelings. That's just a really bloody clunky line of dialogue. I mean, the idea of it is not great either, but the actual line, sorry, that's a down. That was a bit of, I was taken out of the episode to go like, well, that was really something. Actually, there's something I really must remember now from it. There was a moment, right, when they beamed down to that colony. In the first few seconds, everyone's on guard. There's clearly been something bad has happened. This is before we know it's the Gorn, of course. There's blood, you know, where everyone's really sad. And then one of the crewmen steps forwards and jumps as a dog is stuck behind a panel of glass and is barking to get out. And some prick behind him laughs at him for that. Down. You're an ass. And also, did anyone go back to check on that dog? I really hope so. To make things slightly more positive, we're going to go to an up. And that up has to yet again go to Jess Bush as Christine Chapel. Her non-existent bedside manner is rapidly becoming one of my favourite things in Strange New Worlds. I've said before how I lament the fact that Christine Chapel in the original series was less of a character and more of a plot along, which is not to say she got nothing to do, as I've made that point before. Here she's very much a character. Now, we could run the risk, as the season goes on, we could run the risk of the only character trait being, you know, the fact that she takes no guff and she has a terrible bedside manner. But so far, I think it's been balanced really well. The line she says to Una, they're stitching Una up, and, you know, they're like, you know, you need plasma, you need gas, you know, apparently it's akin to giving birth through your mouth. And the scene pauses for a second, and Una looks at her and says, "Who speaks like that?" And Chapel goes, "I do." And I don't know, it just ticks all the right boxes for me. It's the right blend of humour at the right moment without it being sort of silly humour or over the top. And I really like that. It's something that, I have to admit, a lot of Trek has fumbled in the past. And I'm not just talking about Discovery. I'm gonna go back as far as DS9, TNG Voyager. Sometimes they fumble the humour in mix with the drama. And I think this is a really good example of it. I am loving Jess Bush's performance as Chapel. So far, she's rapidly becoming one of my favourite characters. Thanks once again, I guess. Yeah, really, really good. Love all the scenes in the sickbay. You know, we really get that sense of like, we are running on hope and a prayer here. You know, just that non-verbal scene as well at the end where, you know, Una donates her plasma to another patient who needs it. She wakes up to find out that Mbenga has hooked an IV between them. You know, nothing is said. Yes, I have watched enough ER to go like, well, I really hope they were a blood match. I also would like to think that by the 23rd century, they can fix that. They can, yeah, it's fine, it's grand. I presume there are medical professionals watching this video right now going, "Sean, you know nothing about how hemoglobin works." One quick question. All the systems went down. Did anyone check on Mamenga's daughter? Now, another up for this episode, it shows the crew working together under the direction of, but not orders, I'll explain in a second, of Pike. Now, you do have Pike taking charge, of course, but you have Spock suggests, you have Ortegas needs to pilot, you have La'an working with them to, you know, make sure the crew are cohesing together. English, difficult language, never speak it. And then, of course, you have Chapel, Una, Mbenga. They're all working together, even though they're separate, Uhura and, of course, Hemmer. What you have is Pike rallying everyone without beating them over the head, still giving suggestions without kind of playing the role of, you know, I will make the last suggestion, I will do this, I will do that. And I really like that is the sign of a very good captain. In fact, if you watch our recent interview with Dave Blass, he gave a wonderful description of what it is to be a manager. It's that you know you have people who have better skills than you, bring them onto your team and work with them the way a conductor works with an orchestra. And I think that's a wonderful description. To check out that interview, the link will be in the description of this video. That's what Pike is doing here, and I think he absolutely nails it. I enjoy it so much, in fact, that this is my Latinum up of the week. I really enjoyed that. The way they handle it, the way they do everything here. Another up for the week is actually going to introduce a little idea we're going to call Canon Watch. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not about to pick apart Canon. Because if we are slaves to Canon, it stops the story from advancing. I've talked about this in the past, and if you don't believe me, have a listen to the words of Leonard Nimoy himself. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, Canon is the beginning of a story, not the end of a story. Canon watching this, the Gorn themselves, of course, they're appearing, now kind of get away with it, right? You know, we talk about like, oh, no one's seen a Gorn, and I can say, yes, plenty have, they just haven't survived. You know, we see this ship, which, by the way, someone identified as a potential Breen ship. Now, that someone might have been me, that's not important. But yes, we have Gorn here, that's fine. Now, what we also have here is an appearance of the Vulcan mind meld. Now, I'm upping the mind meld. My Canon Watch part of the mind meld is, well, hold on now, Dagger of the Mind is the first time that they performed a mind meld on a human, and well, hold on. No, it's not. because it was performed on Corporal Asquith by Ambassador Soval in Star Trek Enterprise to help identify who bombed the embassy on Vulcan by the Cyranites. So actually, even if this is slightly canon breaking, don't worry, Enterprise did it first. And I really like the idea of this mind meld because, to actually quote Doctor Who for a second, once a door has been opened, it can be walked through, passed through, entered both ways. Because yeah, I really like it. We always only ever see a mind meld working in one direction. That doesn't mean it only works in one direction. It could also work in both directions. And of course, while we see La'an's past and we figure out how the Morse code works, which I'm okay with. It's a bit like, oh, her brother's very smart. Well, if they're descended from genetic engineering, okay. But also, she gets just an echo of Spock's past. And I really like that. I have to say, I really like that now. Overall then, the episode ends, they slingshot around the black hole, stunning imagery of a black hole as well, and they warp out of there, ish. They get out of there quickly, I'll say. The Gorn piddle off, and that's good as well. So the episode ends on most people survive. There is a bunch of deaths, which is sad, but it's a victory, kind of, for the Federation by the end. Another very strong episode. Now, take a walk with me to Cetacean Observations. Now I say take a walk with me, but my lazy ass is remaining seated for this one. Okay, first of all, early on in the episode we get a nice close-up of Spock's console, and it's just, I mean, I know I've talked about it before, but all those buttons, it's pure original series. Someone shared a funny meme there the other day that said, like, you know, kind of, the original series was standard HD and the Strange New Worlds bridge was 4K. I might get hate for that in the comments, but you know what? I love yous all. We do have a pan up on the plaque on the wall, which I thought was really interesting because we know this ship is a Constitution class. It's been said out loud before. However, on that plaque, in keeping with the original series, it says Starship class. Nice attention to detail. The actual ship that the colonists try and escape in, I find very evocative as a sort of a blend of the SS Conestoga from the Enterprise and also the Antares that turned up in the animated series and the remastered original series as well. The brown giant, I feel, was treated very like the Mutara Nebula from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. We lose long-range sensors, we lose shields, you know, things like that, and I think that must have been deliberate. You could say that comes with a double-edged sword because Spock was able to turn the gas of the gas giant into a sort of a radar, which means could he not have done that in the Mutara Nebula? But I'll answer my own query there and going, different composition. You know, similar effects on the ship, different composition. So actually, I'm totally fine with that. We get a shout out to anti-gravitons. Always love to hear about anti-gravitons. Now, one thing I particularly loved was that we know we can't fire torpedoes, so we're going to deploy them effectively like mines. That, to me, is a direct reference to Janeway's method in Year of Hell of deploying 6 torpedoes like mines against the Krenim. Now, a very sad moment, but again, I feel a reference to Year of Hell, is when they seal the bulkheads on the lower decks so that the ship itself won't be compromised. That poor crewman throws Lieutenant Kyle through the bulkhead as it's closing. That, to me, visually and thematically is almost exactly the same as when the Doctor has to close the hatch just before Deck 15 overloads on Voyager, thus losing 2 crewmen. I thought, yeah, that got me right in the heart, especially the little nod that passed between the 2 characters earlier on in the episode. I got the feeling that they were mates, and one saved the other one's life. We get a lovely little rendition of the TOS theme. The shuttlecraft Galileo, I've mentioned it before, I'm mentioning it again. I like the Galileo. We get a cameo vocal from Michael Burnham, which again, it's to do with this mind meld. Again, I think essential, love it without hanging too much of a lampshade on it. Really, really like it. Now we get a reference to Enar pacifism. And of course the introduction of the Enar in Star Trek Enterprise showed that they don't get involved in politics, they don't do anything. In fact, it was such a shock to find that an Enar had been co-opted into piloting the Romulan drone. So a shout out to it here explains again that yes, very much the Enar do not fight. In fact, Hemmer goes so far to say, I won't fight for Starfleet, but I will defend its principles. Really nice way around. Not to mention, of course, that he's got blue blood. Just lovely. And of course, the final thing in this is the reference to, if we make it out of this, this will be the Pike maneuver, which of course is a callback to the Picard maneuver, to the Riker maneuver, to all of the flippin' maneuvers. And you know what? Pike deserves to have a maneuver named after him. That is everything for our list today. What did you think of the episode? And now that we're 4 episodes in, what do you think of Strange New Worlds overall? I want to take a big just moment to say thank you so much to everyone who subscribes. Like, look how much you've helped this channel grow. Really, really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. Because of the growth, we've been able to make videos like Retro Ups and Downs for Star Trek The Motion Picture. We've been able to bring wonderful guests on for interviews. That is directly because of the engagement and subscriptions that you pass on to this channel. So, thank you so much. While you're at it, please don't forget to like and share. Now remember, you can catch us over on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can catch myself at Sean Ferrick on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I think I'm on Facebook as well. God knows I'm probably on something else. You'll find me. I'm just check behind the couch. I'm probably there. You're all wonderful and awesome. Make sure that you live long and prosper. Thank you so much for joining us. To our friends in Ukraine, we think of you, we love you, we hope you are doing okay. We know you're facing insurmountable challenges, but you will get through this. We are behind you every step of the way. Thank you so much to everyone. Have a wonderful day. Make it so.